We're gonna bury you alive. I said, what? There is as much abundance as you are willing to go after. It's not a competition. Even if people said no, I always heard, we'll see. And we'll see means it's gonna happen.
My guest today is a two-time Billboard Magazine Radio Personality of the Year, one of the top 100 radio personalities of all time. He's also featured in the Texas Radio Hall of Fame and the San Antonio Radio Hall of Fame. He's the voice of characters in many film, television, and commercials, including The Jetsons and the Gremlins movie, one of my personal favorites. He's also a Grammy Award nominee for his recording of the children's We Are the World. Over his 60-plus year career, he's worked with many of the biggest names in entertainment history. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome radio legend and my friend, Sonny Melendrez.
Andrew, the best part of it all was when you said, and my friend. There you go. That's all I needed to hear.
Well, Sonny, you've accomplished some really amazing things over the year. I think everybody knows that. And growing up, did you always want to be in radio, or is that something that just came about?
Yeah, my first radio I bought, if you can believe this, Andrew, there was a little electronics store across the street from the Alamo. We're sitting here in San Antonio downtown, and we're not far from the Alamo. And there was a little radio there that was on sale for $19.95. And in fact, I have one that looks just like it. And my mom gave me $1. We put it in layaway, and finally got the radio. And I would spend my allowance on batteries, because I knew that I was going to be on the radio one day, and that's all I listened to. So I decided that I was going to be the person talking on that radio. I would actually take a record player and my little recorder, and I would pretend like I was on the radio. And I'd play the songs, and I'd introduce them, and I'd hold it up to the speaker, and I'd make these little 5-minute productions, and then I would play them for my friends on the phone, one at a time. So basically, I was podcasting.
The first podcaster.
Exactly. I invented podcasting. But we didn't really have a phone. You see, we lived in the back of my dad's barber shop, and in a little strip center on the east side of San Antonio. And I would actually go into the barber shop, because the payphone was what I used, next to the shoe shine stand, and I'd sit there in the dark, dialing one friend at a time and playing these little shows. Andrew, for all I knew, they'd put the phone down and came back 5 minutes later and say, yeah, that's great, I gotta go. So I couldn't wait to be on the radio. And I was giving myself, unbeknownst to me, I was giving myself experience. So that when I finally got my first job, I'd been doing it for years. Because your subconscious doesn't know whether you're in, a professional studio, whether you're getting paid or not. All it knows is, hey, you've done this before. And it works to your benefit.
That's right. And so were you as well received then as you are now among your peers, your classmates?
People don't really know, they don't have your dream, your vision, what it is you want to do. In fact, when you're in high school especially, you're made fun of, no matter what you say. In the 60s, when I was growing up, there was a thing called Hootenanny, a television show, and it was all folk singers. And they were going to have this big citywide hootenanny at Incarnate Word High School. It's going to be all the Catholic schools are going to come and watch all these different singers. And the guy in charge was at my high school. And I told him, I said, look, you're going to have this hootenanny, you're going to have the comedy interlude. He says, Melendrez, what are you talking about, comedy interlude? I said, they have a comedian in the middle of a show. He said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I've got a routine. He said, you've got a routine? Well, we'll see. All I needed to hear was, we'll see. That's all it took. So I was practicing, getting ready. I had my voices, all these different impressions that I did. The night of the deal, everybody's there. They're all in casual clothes. I'm wearing a suit. I'm in the bathroom rehearsing. I'm nowhere on the program. Nothing. My name's not on there, nothing. Halftime, they have an intermission. The guy comes up to me and says, hey, Melendrez, you still got that act? I said, yeah. He says, well, the first act didn't show up, so we're going to put you on in the second half. So I go on the second half, and Andrew, I killed. That night, I went from being this shy 16-year-old kid to being Mr. Confident. I mean, it was unbelievable what that did. And I've never looked back.
So many times people have these dreams or something that they wish they could have done.
Yeah.
And they just hold out on them.
Yeah.
But you were prepared. What was it about this point in your life that you just took action?
I tell people, I said, my dad built a dream machine for my brother and me in our backyard, actually the parking lot of his barbershop. And there was a couple of trees there, and he made a tree house. And I would go up there, and as the stars began to twinkle across the big Texas sky, after dinner, I'd go up there and I would just dream about who I would become, what I would do, people I'd meet, the places I'd go. And it was just that imagination that had no limits, I think, that has taken me to all these places. Because I always look for the best that can happen. I literally have always been an optimist, and I think I get it from my mom, who is the maternal optimist.
So you had this incredibly dynamic career in radio, entertainment, television, movies. Tell us a little bit about what it was like to take part in this golden era of radio. Not just golden era of radio, but of music, right? Of popular music.
Yeah.
And especially for those who don't even understand what that's like today, because very few people are listening to the radio. You
Right.
have Spotify and all these online platforms.
That's true.
Tell us about what it was like to be in that heyday of golden age radio.
I really believe that I was a part of the last great days of radio as we know it. And who knows what radio will be like in the future. But I always felt like radio captured your imagination in so many different ways. And so to be able to have all of these ways to entertain via sound, because, if you're talking to 100 people, 100,000 people, 1 million people, every one of them has got a different picture in their head based on what they're hearing coming out of the radio. And that really enthralled me. But I also was lucky because I would listen to people that were doing it, who were the best that they could be. Mm-hmm. And my goal was to go to Los Angeles. I wanted to be on the air in Los Angeles. There were the three big markets in the U.S. are New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles. And that was my goal.
So when you go to Los Angeles and you're this young guy in the 1960s, what is it that was inspiring you to shake things up and change the way that people were previously operating in terms of radio programming?
I never saw myself as a disruptor. I saw myself as, I've always operated from a position of gratitude. And the gratitude keeps you pinching yourself. And you're saying, I can't believe this. I can't believe this. I mean, one time I was on the air, because I had 3 dreams when I was a kid. I wanted to be on the radio, I wanted to work for Walt Disney, and I wanted to be the voice of cartoons. I would watch cartoons and I would impersonate the different voices, and I thought, I'm going to be the voice of cartoons. I'm going to do that. And I was on the air, and all throughout my career, I'd always done voices on the air. I'd done impressions, etc. And I got a call from an agent, and the agent says, have you ever thought about doing cartoon work? I said, are you kidding? He says, I was a kid. He says, well, tell you what, give me a sample of your work and let me see what I can do. So a week later, he calls me up and says, okay, you got your first job. I said, but I didn't audition. He said, no, they loved what they heard. You're in. And the first job was at the Hanna-Barbera studios, working with the original cast on a new season of The Jetsons. I'm in my 20s. I'm in this studio, not much bigger than this. We all have microphones for our different parts, and I'm hearing all of these voices. George, Jane, his wife, daughter Judy, Elroy. It's unbelievable. And because I'm a kid in San Antonio watching The Jetsons,
right.
Now I'm with the cast, and I'm not there as an observer. I'm there to do other voices that they'll need throughout the different episodes. And inside me, I'm jumping up and down. I'm going, I can't believe this. I can't believe this. Oh my God, it's George. But on the outside, I'm going, okay, yeah, very good. Yeah, okay, nice to meet you. I love your work. And the best part of it all was, if you recall, George Jetson worked for the Spacely Sprocket Company.
That's right.
And his boss's name, Mr. Spacely, Cosmo Spacely, I think. And the voice of Mr. Spacely was Mel Blanc, the great Mel Blanc, the greatest voice artist of all time.
That's right.
The voice of Bugs Bunny, Sylvester, Tweety, Foghorn Leghorn, all of these Warner Brothers cartoons. So I was like glue on him. I would wait for the break, and then I'd start talking, and we developed a friendship. He actually taught me a lot of the voices that he did. And that's unheard of for somebody to give like that, like he did. And I call that the ladder of life, where there's always someone willing to pull you up to where they are, but with your other arm, you're able to pull someone up to where you are. And that's how it all works. But it was an incredible, wonderful serendipity.
Tell me more about this concept and why it's important to help others. Because there's a lot of people out there that I think they feel a little scarce and they don't want to share kind of their keys to life.
There is as much abundance as you are willing to go after. It's not a competition. I know a lot of things are kind of they're put in a competitive way in sales and all kinds of other things, but it's all about you and how it is you are able to perform. But the main thing is what it is you can do for others. I'll tell you a little story. I was coming out of a dentist's office several years ago in Los Angeles, and I saw this lady. She was walking down the hall, and she had a neck brace, and she looked like she was lost. She's a little short lady. I said, "Excuse me, can I help you?" She says, "I'm looking for Dr. Brown. Have you seen Dr. Brown's office?" I said, "No, but let's go to the directory over here, and we'll see if we can find Dr. Brown." We walk over, and I figured, she's somebody's mom. I want somebody to help my mom if she's in that situation. We look in the directory. There's no Dr. Brown. I said, "I tell you what, I'll call information, and we'll see if we can find Dr. Brown." "You would do this for me?" I said, "Yes, absolutely. I'm happy to." So I call. Sure enough, Dr. Brown is in another building across the way. There was construction going on, so I said, "I'm going to bring her over." So there I am with little Mrs. Rosenberg from Westlake, California. 5 minutes ago, Andrew, we were strangers, but now we're a couple. We're walking slowly across the road, beautiful day, and she looks up at me and she says, "We're all here to help each other, aren't we?" And that's it. That is simply it. We are all in this lifetime, on this planet, here to help each other. Why wouldn't we? My favorite quote is a quote from a philosopher in the first century. His name is Philo of Alexandria. He said, "Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a great battle." And how true. Anyone listening right now, everyone has a burden of some sort. It may not be big now, but it could be bigger later. But we're all fighting this battle, so why wouldn't we help each other? And in helping each other, that's where the abundance comes from. Because you are never happier than when you are in the service of others.
How has that provided your career with the success that you've had, and how can somebody else, use acts of service to help them in their life, in their journey of life?
Well, everyone has influence. Everyone has the ability. Even if it's only to give somebody a kind word, who can't do that? Is somebody a smile? When I came in your building right now, there was a lady, she was setting up all the Christmas decorations. And she had already set up quite a few. And as I walked in, I just said, "Wow, everything looks great." You should have seen her face light up. She goes, "You like it?" I said, "Yes, it looks fantastic." And That's what I'm talking about. There is never a shortage of opportunities to serve others. And when you are able to do it through your talents, like I've been able to do it through radio and television and all the different opportunities that come my way as far as helping, especially young people and those who are less fortunate, it's a privilege, but I think it's also an obligation. It goes back to that, we're all here to help each other.
Before we get too far away from this, I want to hear more about this relationship with Mel Blanc. As a huge fan, growing up, anybody my age,
Okay.
growing up with Bugs Bunny and all these characters,
Sure.
just a huge fan of just the creativity
Yeah.
to come up with these characters that were a huge part of our childhood.
Yeah.
All of us around the world. So when you were able to work with Mel Blanc and he's taken you on and mentored you, what was that like? And you said that he actually taught you the voices.
Yeah.
How does one teach his voice character actor skills
Well,
to somebody
I'll
else?
give you an example. I'll show you how he taught me to do Bugs Bunny.
Okay.
But first, let me tell you the story of Bugs Bunny.
Okay.
When Mel was first approached to do the voice of this character, they already had the drawings, they already had the kind of an outline of persona of the character, and they told him that it was a rabbit with an attitude. And they were going to be recording in New York. So they flew him out from Los Angeles. He's at the hotel, he's on his way he doesn't know what he's going to do with the voice. He'd seen the picture, but he didn't know what he was going to come up with. So he gets in a cab to go to the studio, and the cab driver says, "And what to, Mac?" And starts talking to him with this Brooklyn accent and keeps calling him Doc. "Hey, Doc, you see the Dodgers last night? Man, I tell you." And he's like, keeps listening. And see, when you're an impressionist, when you do voices, it's almost like you collect them. You listen to dialects, you listen to tones, you listen to attitudes. And so anytime you hear somebody speak, it's just our nature to get that recorder going in our heads, and that's a good one, I'm going to take that one, oh, this is a good one. So by the time he got to the studio, he had this Brooklyn cab driver's voice down, and he goes in the studio, he says, "I don't know, I see him as kind of a Brooklyn accent, kind of like what's up, Doc?" And they loved it. It was great. Little did he know they had just taken the voice from the guy that brought him over to the studio. So when he was teaching me, and I'll teach you, the first thing you want to do when you're doing a voice is to get the tone. With Bugs Bunny, the tone is, and you got to have that correctly. You can't go, but you get that. Now you add the "What's up, Doc?" Now you could say, "What's up, Doc?" But that doesn't give you the character. It doesn't give you the real attitude that he has. "What's up, Doc?" Then you get the hesitation, you get the attitude, you get the smart aleck. "Ain't I a stinker?"
Can you give us some more examples of the things
Sure,
that Mel
sure.
taught you, or the
Okay.
things that you've developed on your own?
Well, I'll tell you one that I've developed my own, but let me tell you, I'll give you a few of the ones he taught me, okay? I love Bugs Bunny, but there's also Elmer Fudd, there's Sylvester and Tweety, and Foghorn Leghorn. So we'll start out with Elmer Fudd. Always looking for Bugs Bunny with that funny looking gun. "Be very, very quiet. I'm looking for a little gray rabbit. And when I find a rabbit, I want to tear him apart, limb from limb." "What's up, Doc? Have you seen a little gray rabbit? Big eyes, yeah. Big ears, yeah. Big smile, yeah." "I ain't seen him. Ain't I a stinker?" "Ooh, I thought I saw a putty tat. I did saw a putty tat." "You bet you saw a putty tat. The putty tat was me. Well, I'm the wildest, rootinest, tootinest, shootinest. Yeah, shut up." There you go. Sorry I spit on your hair.
And I understand that you have a special character that you've developed over the years.
I do. In fact, it was inspired by the very first voice that I learned to do when I was watching my favorite show when I was 11 years old, which was Yogi Bear. And you know, Yogi Bear had that bigger than life persona. Hey, I'm Yogi Bear, smarter than the average bear. And his little friend,
Boo Boo.
Yogi, we're gonna get in trouble with the ranger.
don't worry about a thing, little boo-boo. So there was this one episode, Andrew, where this little duck kept following Yogi, asking him to be his mother. And he kept saying, Mr. Bear, in this little duck voice, would you be my mama? And so I'm watching it on a little black and white TV. I'm eating Kellogg's cornflakes out of the box. I've got a t-shirt and cut. I can remember exactly how I was dressed. I was sitting there eating, and I'm thinking, wow, what a great voice, Mr. Bear. So I had my little recorder, I turned off the TV, and I started, Mr. Bear. In my head, I could hear it. I just had to figure out how am I gonna get that voice. And I tried and tried. My mom, the maternal optimist, I said, Mom, listen, Mr. Bear. My mom, she goes, mijo, parece Bugs Bunny, qué bueno. She didn't know, but she encouraged me. That's the main thing. So finally, after getting a sore throat, one day out of my little 11-year-old mouth came,
Mr. Bear, would you be my mama? I don't have a mama. I'm just a poor little orphan.
well, I was just as shocked as you are right now. I thought to myself, oh my good, I can make him say anything. And I thought to myself, where can I go to try out this voice? Well, there's not a lot of things you can do when you're 11 years old. You don't have an audience, you don't have, a microphone, speakers, all that business. But we had a place here in San Antonio called Frontier Burger. Had the same format as Sonic, where you drive up, you talk, they can't hear you, they can't see you, they can't hear you. So I had a friend whose brother had a car. We go to Frontier Burger. The guy says, "How can a Frontier Burger? May I take your order, please?" I put the window down and says,
Yes, I would like a cheeseburger. I want to order fries. I want a Texas toast. I want a hot apple pie and make it snappy, big boy.
well, the guy left the microphone on, and I could hear him in the kitchen. He goes, "Hey, check it out. I think there's a duck in the red car." He comes on after a long time and says, "Would there be anything else?" I put the window back down. I said,
Yes. Would you be my mama?
and that was the birth of my character, which I named Bono Duck.
Bono Duck.
Bono Duck.
So you worked in radio, right? That was your first goal.
Yep.
Then you wanted to be a voice of a cartoon.
Right?
You did that on the Jetsons.
Right.
And now you want to work for Walt Disney.
Always wanted to work for Walt Disney. I would watch the Mickey Mouse Club, The Wonderful World of Disney. I thought, I belong in that world. I need to be with these people. So when I found out, I guess it was 1981, I found out that the Disney was going to have their own channel on cable. And the Disney Channel was going to be launching in 1983. And usually, if you're an actor in any kind of role in any of these cities, especially Los Angeles, you're looking at the trades, and you're looking at they need a host for this show, or they need a host, and you go audition, or your agent will call you and say Disney's looking for this or that. I didn't want to wait, and that's another lesson learned. Do not wait for opportunity, because see, sometimes opportunity knocks. Sometimes it taps on your window, and sometimes it drives by outside and you don't know it, but you've got to go out and flag it down. You're going to look for those opportunities. And that's what I did. I came up with an idea for a show. I got my agent to get me in front of what they call the suits, where you have executives who are, you're pitching them on an idea, et cetera, and if they like it, then they can take it from there, or not, they can say, thanks, don't call us, we'll call you. So I had this idea. In fact, I just saw the treatment the other day. I was going through my files. It was a show called Saturday in the Park. And the idea was that the show would be done in parks across the country. Yellowstone Park, all these different parks across the country. And I would have 20 kids with me. And we'd go through the park, and in different parts of the park, where besides learning about nature, etc., we would see guest stars who would show up, and they would either perform or we'd interview them or whatever. And it would be I thought it was a great concept. So they call me in. My heart is beating out of my chest, and I'm standing there, and it's very much like this. And I'm standing up, and they're literally wearing suits. There was one lady and 3 men, and they were just kind of sitting there, and they said, "Okay, Sonny Melendrez, what do you got?" Because it was like almost like they're having these pitch meetings all day long. And so I go in, I said, "Okay, the show is called Saturday in the Park, and here's how to," and I start doing all, and I'm standing, I'm doing the gyrations and everything else. And at one point, Andrew, I see the lady who's sitting here look over at one of the men, and she goes, and I'm thinking to myself as I see that, great, they're making fun of me. And I didn't flinch. I just kept going, and they finished it up. And here's what they said. I'll never forget this. They said, "Sonny, a nice idea is not what we're looking for, but with your enthusiasm, we think you'd be perfect for a show we've got in production called You and Me Kid. Would you be interested?" Let me check. Yes. And so I ended up being the host. I tell people I'm the second host on the Disney Channel, second male host. The first one was Mickey Mouse. And I hosted the show from 1983 to 1991.
Wow.
We did 120 episodes. And it was an incredibly beautiful show. We had child and parent teams, mother-daughter, father-son, father-daughter, mother-son, and I would then lead them into these activities. And then they would do the activity, and then you at home with your child would do the same thing. And sometimes it would be interactive, like we'd have this tug of war with an invisible rope. Okay, so your dad's gonna hold one part, now you're gonna hold the other, now pull, and then of course the dad would go like this, and then he'd pull again, okay, good. So it was tug of war. And then I'd say, "Okay, let go of the rope." And they'd let go of the rope, and the dad would fall down. And it was like, oh, big laughter, right? So, okay, let's try with the kids at home. All right, let's get the rope, and we're gonna throw it to you at home. So now you got a dad or a mom and a child in front of the television, and they're holding on. And now I'm telling them to pull, and you're pulling at home. And of course, these people, they're going like this. And then I tell the kids at home, let go of the rope. They let go of the rope, and the parent and child fall down on the television.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, but the great thing about it, and I think really that's also been my role in life. I give you permission to let the kid inside you come out and play. And you'd see these parents, and all of a sudden they become kids again. And when you become a parent, you get that, you understand what that's all about, because you get to be a kid again through your kids' eyes. But there's no reason why you can't let that child come out and play every day. And I think that's where I get my love of life, my joie de vivre, my outlook like a child.
Why do you think people lose this childlike ability, this curiosity? At some point, as you become an adult, it seems like a lot of folks just release that. How do you continue to stay so youthful and energetic and inspiring to others?
Well, I've been very lucky to have had an environment that nurtured that behavior, and I think we're at the mercy of our environment and how we grow up, and you really can't say that anyone hasn't had a childhood that has maybe all kinds of different difficulties, etc. but there's still a child there. We're all born children. We're not born adults. We're not born prejudiced. We're not born with a bad attitude. You know, we're born as children. If you take 5 children, 5 babies from all around the world, and you put them, you know, on the floor together, they'll start playing with each other or poking each other or stuff like. It's universal, and that's what's inside every single one of us. How we get from there to where we want to be or should be is dependent on what happens to us. And those of us fortunate enough to look back and not let the bad stuff affect our present. I always say you can't drive a car by looking in the rearview mirror. So if you're always looking forward, then you're filling your mind with possibility, with hope, with dreams.
I want to talk more about this because I feel like we get along so well because play is my natural state.
Yeah.
And I've now given myself the permission to decide that that's all I want to do.
That's right.
I don't want to get caught up in the minutia and this, you know, because life can be challenging. And we easily have the ability to just kind of go into the challenges and forget how to have fun. And so then a lot of people end up working for the weekend and, hey, let's go take the boat out all weekend, and that's their moment to let loose. But why not be that way all the time?
Exactly.
And that's where I'm finding myself, giving myself the permission to be that. And so why do you think that as we grow into adults, we lose that? And how can somebody harness that to get back into that state of play?
It's different for everyone. It's easy to say, you know, I'm a motivational speaker, but I can't really motivate you. I can inspire you to motivate yourself, but everyone has a different way of getting there. But what happens is, when I've seen it happen countless times, either in the audience that I'm in front of, but also the people that I speak to afterwards or coach, and that is spark. You see this one spark of not only brilliance, but also of that smile, that twinkle in their eye. And I think that that's what excites me, because if I know, it's almost like finding an oyster and you're trying to get to the pearl, and there's a way to open it up, there's a place in there, and you can finally get in there. All of a sudden, that's where the magic is. And I think that that's what my goal is, to do that, not only with my presentations, but also in my interactions with people. But the biggest thing that you and I, who are already on that side of the spectrum, can do is lead by our example. When people see you doing what it is you do, how you do it, there is no better teacher. You can tell them what they should do, what they shouldn't do, you can talk to them, you can have them read books, but unless they get it from you and they see it in you, that is the greatest way of inspiring.
Let's go back to when you're in Los Angeles. You're
Okay.
working on the Jetsons,
Yeah.
and you're working with Mel Blanc.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just love Mel Blanc. I want to hear more about it. So, and I remember hearing you telling this story, and we talked about the importance of having that mentor in your life.
Yes.
And subsequently, then I asked you to be my mentor.
Yes.
And we've been changing the world ever since.
We have.
That's
We have.
right. So tell us a little bit more about the importance of having mentorship in your life. What does that do for you, and how can that help you to become better at your career, better and more successful human, and just to enjoy life more?
Well, simple fact is, you can't do it alone. And we live in a day and age that there is no excuse for not having any kind of mentorship. When I grew up, there was no internet. We didn't have, our devices. We didn't have our connections, our Instagram and messaging and everything else. It was all just there. In many ways, I think I was at an advantage, because we'd go out and be outside all day and using our imagination. My brother, who's younger than me, and I have these conversations all the time, Andrew, about growing up inside that tiny area of the barber shop, and outside was a parking lot and a couple of trees and a tree house. And that was our backyard. And we'd find ways to entertain ourselves with what we didn't have. I'll give you an example. I'd go to school, and I was a Boy Scout, and I remember going to, I was a Cub Scout, and I remember going to a friend's house where he had a meeting, and he had not only his own room, but he had these, these model jets, and they were hanging from the ceiling like they were flying. And I'm looking around, I'm going, oh my, it was like, like the kids on TV. And then I went outside, and he had a sandbox, with real sand. It was like a playground. Mm-hmm. I thought, oh, wow. So right away, I'm thinking, how can I make a sandbox? We have no sand. So I saw an old screen door, and I said to my brother, I said, go get me to fill this bucket with dirt. Just get all the dirt you can. And we would sift the screen, the dirt, so that we had now all fine looking dirt. And now we had we surrounded it with wood. And so now I had a sandbox that really was made of fine dirt. And it was the same thing, but it was the imagination that took me there. And then I would actually make these battleships that were just pieces of wood, and I would cut the part of, there were 4x4s, and I'd cut them so there was the point of a ship, and I'd put nails all around, and then thread all from a nail, and that was like the guardrail on the ship, and another stack of wood on top of that. And so now these little ships were in the sand. Again, it's imagination that I grew up with, basically not from looking at what I didn't have and saying, oh, I wish I had this, or I don't have this, or all this. No, we were poor and we didn't know it. But we got to live this wonderful childhood of using our imagination.
What's the importance of having an imagination and developing it, right? Because it's like anything else, you have to develop it to improve your ability. What's the importance of that? And in today's day and age, with all these distractions, do you feel like that's good for the imagination, or do you feel like it's bad for imagination?
Well, it depends on you. I mean, you can go to a restaurant, you can eat from McDonald's every day, or you can go to, health food. It's up to you. We all have a decision to make in so many different ways, but the biggest decision is what goes into our mind. And you can't have two thoughts at the same time. So anytime you have a negative thought, which is like a weed, weeds don't need to be watered, they'll just grow on their own. You replace it with a positive thought, and eventually you'll reap the rewards of that positive thinking. And once you start reaping those rewards, it's hard to go back. You don't want to go back, because that's just a negative world that serves you no purpose at all. Helping people gives you that positivity. If you're constantly looking for ways to help people that you don't even know, there's a great saying that says, the true measure of a person is how they treat those who can do nothing for them. And that's what I think is the greatest amount of service, is when you are giving. If you're at a restaurant, the way you treat that server shouldn't be any different than the way you would treat a family member or anyone that you'd want to meet. They're human beings. I even have fun with the people that call with these telemarketers, or they'll start reading. I said, okay, now look, I know you're reading from a script, but I want you to put down the script and just tell me what it is. I'm giving them a session, because they're human beings, and they may have an accent and be in another part of the world or whatever. And yes, they're trying to feed their family. They've got a job. They're trying to do something. And it's not their fault that they're in that position, getting paid who knows how little to do what it is they do.
So many times we get caught up in what's going on in our personal life.
Right.
We're just so focused on whatever's right in front of us or whatever happened the night before or that morning.
Yes.
Right? And so we're just so enthralled in our own personal needs. If somebody's there and life is just not going great for them, how can they transition into just being a life of service to others when they're just stuck in their own personal world?
Okay. If there was something that was going on with you physically, and you had a choice of going to the doctor or not, you go to the doctor. The doctor says, this is what your ailment is. This is how we can fix it. And now you fix it. You've done something about it. Well, it's the same thing with your psyche. The same thing with, like I say, how it is you fill your bucket. So, because every morning you wake up with this empty bucket, and before you know it, things are flooding in. Just all the stuff that you're thinking of, all the stuff that you've got to do. You turn on the radio or television, you see the news, all this, it's all filling up your mind.
Yes.
And now you're back to where you left off when you went to sleep. If you take that first 30 minutes, maybe even 20 minutes of your waking day, and fill it with something positive. I tend to read something. I've got stuff, all these books on my Kindle. And so I'm reading at least a chapter of a positive book. And it sets my mind going with ideas of, I didn't know that, or maybe this, you know what, this is a good idea. Because now I start to have other things flooding in, but they're positive. I'm giving my brain food that allows me to come up with different ways to take care of different problems. The other thing is, and I read this morning, and I needed to be reminded about this, from Brian Tracy. He was talking about the importance of having a list. And basically he's saying that the list you have at night for the next day, even if it's just 3 things, but just have that list, believe it or not, while you're asleep, your subconscious is going to work. It's almost like you've got this whole factory of people, and they're all going, okay, he wants to do this, and we're going to do this, and they're all working. And now you wake up, and it's like, I know what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do this. And it's amazing how that can set the stage for the day. The first 30 minutes of the day are the rudder of your day, and they will set the stage. And see, I've never believed that there's such a thing as having a bad day. You can have a bad experience, you can have a bad hour, you can have a bad minute, but there's no reason to have a bad rest of the day. And that's the other really big thing that I've learned is the power of now, because it's always now. That's it.
The eternal now.
It's the eternal now. Yes, there's no future. I mean, we can talk about it, but this is it. This is everything. This is the past. This is the future. This is now.
And what a wonderful now we're having. Right now.
Yes, right now.
Okay, so you go to Los Angeles and you accomplish all the dreams. You've been the voice character actor. You've been on the Disney Channel. You've been on radio. You'd come back to your hometown of San Antonio. How does that happen? Why does that happen? And what happens next for Sonny Melendrez?
Well, again, it goes back to that pinching, because that was all. See, I believe that there's everything happens for a reason, and everything happens not by accident. Coincidences are just that, coincidence. 2 incidents that are there. Why are they there? There's a reason for it. You take advantage of those coincidences, and all of a sudden you start to see all kinds of things unfold that you can't explain necessarily, but you take advantage of. It's because of the Disney show. We were going through all these different cities across the country to promote the show, and Disney had all the characters, etc. We'd go to all these different TV stations, radio stations, malls, and we'd do these different shows. And one of the stations that we came to do an interview was in San Antonio, and my wife, Linda, when we came here, she said, if we ever left Los Angeles, because I hadn't been back in 13 years, and she had never been here. And she said, if we ever left LA, to raise our family, this would be a beautiful city to do that, because she could see that everybody was so friendly, and it was just a beautiful town. And the radio station, the same company that had KTSA now had an FM, KTFM, and they wanted to bring in a big name to do the morning show, and so they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. I agreed, and never. I mean, it was unbelievable, because now I was not only back in San Antonio, but I was at a station that was state of the art, beautiful facility, and now was able to do things that I had done in Los Angeles, but do them here. And the main thing was to not say no for at least 2 to 3 years, and went to, even to this day, as you know. People ask me to do this, do that, and I always say yes if I can. And as a result of that, I really, fell in love once again with this city, and developed a love affair in all the things that I did. But it was also be able to work with everyone. In fact, when I came back, many of my classmates were running the city. Henry Cisneros, who went to Central Catholic with me, he was the mayor. And Charlie Gonzalez was a judge, and his father was, of course, Henry B. Gonzalez, and he was also in a position of influence. So I already saw the wonderful the growth of all of our classmates and what it was they were doing, every single one of them, even to this day, doing things for the community, doing things for others. And I had the opportunity to do that through all of my, through my radio career. And so consequently, I was able to get involved in all kinds of charities, both emceeing, both speaking, both delivering. One time, I'll give you an example, Andrew. One time, I was on the air, and the city of San Antonio, by the way, surprised me, literally surprised me, with an incredible honor. In fact, tomorrow I'm going to be doing something there that I'm really excited about. The city of San Antonio told my wife, here's what we're going to do, because they were going to have a big tribute dinner, and they said, we're going to announce it, but don't tell him. So I come home, and Linda says, the city is going to honor you, and you're going to be very pleased. I said, well, what is it? She says, I can't tell you. What do you mean you can't tell me? She says, I can't tell you. So they announced it. They said that there was actually a community center in the poorest side of town, the west side of San Antonio. There was Monterey Park, and it's the Monterey Park Community Center. They're going to rename it the Sonny Melendrez Community Center, which is unbelievable. Usually things like that happen when you die, I didn't have to die. So that incredible, wonderful honor gave me now the opportunity to connect the haves with the have-nots and bring all kinds of different positive, not only money, goods, services to the kids who were serviced by who went to the community center, but also gave me an opportunity to report back. And here's an example. I got a call one morning, and I said, tomorrow's the first day of school, and I wonder how many, the first day of school is in a couple of weeks, and I wonder how many parents are thinking about haircuts for their children. And so I got a call from a salon. They said, look, we've got like 3 chairs here at our salon. We're happy to bring the chairs to your community center and give free haircuts. And I said, that's great. This was like at 7 o'clock in the morning. By the time I got off the air at 9, we had 27 salons, all committing to bring their chairs. We had people donating trucks. We had all kinds of things, the logistics all happening, and all from that one conversation. So now it is the Sunday before the first day of school, and they did 1,000 heads of hair in one day from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. They turned the gym into a giant salon, and that all came from that one call. But that's what I see my role as being the connection between those who want to give and those who need. But the other part of it is those who are listening are also inspired to do things on their own. They say that there are 3 people who are affected by a random act of kindness: the person who receives it, the person who gives it, and the person who either watches it or hears about it. And that's the incredible part of the magic of radio.
What is it about San Antonio where people think that it's a great place to raise a family, and how is that different than a place like Los Angeles where you're coming from?
I'll tell you, I figured it out. I have the answer to that. San Antonio is made up of at least 50%, if not more, of people who grew up here. There are people in San Antonio who've never been anywhere else. They may have visited, but they've never lived anywhere else. And so, in many ways, they think this is the way it's supposed to be because it's a friendly city. But at the same time, in other cities like Los Angeles, you have a majority of people, or a lot of people, who are not from there. And they come from all different parts of the country. And so you don't have the community. I mean, you know, you do have it in certain pockets, and here's this community and this community, et cetera, and it's an incredible place to live, but you don't have it like San Antonio. In San Antonio, we are the community, no matter where you are. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we live in an environment where we grew up with, you know, you could leave your screen door open, or your porch. People sit out on the porch and watch the world go by, and just all kinds of things. When I was a kid, we'd go on our bicycles and we, go who knows where, and your parents don't know until it's time to come home. And as long as you're home in time for supper, that was it. Well, that's not the case anymore. But in San Antonio, you have so many people who fall in love with the city, even though they come here from other places, especially with the military. You hear this story all the time. People come here because they had to, then they're deployed somewhere else, and they keep thinking, we got to get back to San Antonio. And they can't wait to get back, and many of them come back here and retire.
One time, you told me a story about being buried alive for a radio promotion. Now, is this just a regular day in radio?
No.
Or is this, did you lose a bet or something?
Even I didn't know what it was going to entangle. In fact, my wife Linda was out of town, otherwise it would never have happened. But what happened was, in San Antonio, we have something called Fiesta Week. And it's 10 days of nothing but a giant party to celebrate, our city. In fact, it's built around all these different parades, etc. Well, there are 2 kings throughout the entire experience. One of them is King Antonio, and the other one is named El Rey Feo. And the way you become one of those kings is you're nominated, and then you have to go out and raise a certain amount of money for scholarships. And then if you do that, then you become the king for one of those years. Well, I was nominated, and we were $20,000 short of reaching our goal, and it was like 2 weeks till the deadline. And so the program director of the radio station, I was at KTFM at the time, he says, "Sonny, I figured out how we're going to raise the $20,000. We're going to do it." He said, "What? We're going to bury you alive." I said, "What?" He says, "Yeah, this guy, he does a promotion. He does it in cities all across the country, and what they do is they're going to put you in a capsule." That's what he said. He said the word capsule. They put you in a capsule, and they bury you, and then they have like this tube, and people can look and they can see that you're actually down there, and they donate, and that's how we have to say, until we raise $20,000, you're not going to come up. And I said, how big is this capsule? He says, oh, it's just, it's a capsule. And I'm thinking like astronauts, and I'm thinking, that's not too bad. And I told my wife, she was actually visiting her parents in St. Louis, and I said, yeah, they're going to put me in this capsule. And I didn't tell her all the details, right? So I get to the location. They've got the whole thing, it's dug 6 feet down. There's no capsule. There's a coffin. It was just a little bit bigger than a coffin. They had a microphone and a camera in the coffin, in the capsule, and a mat and a pillow. And people always say, well, what about if you have to go to the bathroom? I didn't eat. I was dehydrated. It was for 2 days, nothing. And so consequently, that was the whole deal. I get in there, and now it's July, and the ground is not just dirt, it's what they call caliche, which is like clay. And so the guy who was in charge of the whole thing, he says, yeah, if we need to get him out, we can get him out in 15, 20 minutes. That wasn't the case, as I found out later. So they put me down there, and this is the scary part. And I don't want to freak people out, but this is the viewer discretion is advised. I'm inside, and I hear dirt, because it's wood above me. It's basically like right here, and I'm hearing, and then all of a sudden, I don't hear anything. In other words, the dirt was completely full over the entire area. And now it was like I was in the abyss. And had the microphone, they said, let's go to Sonny Melendrez, let's go and see how he's doing. and people could come and look. And in fact, Channel 5 had the weatherman, Albert Flores, he was there doing reports, and people were coming and donating money, etc. Well, I was in there for 19 hours.
Wow.
19 hours. Finally, we hit the $20,000 mark. Now it's time to get Sonny out. They're shoveling and shoveling and shoveling. And meanwhile, it's like really, it's gelled because it's clay and it's summertime. And finally, they got me out. When I got out of that situation, I looked at trees. I looked. Oh my God! I'm hugging the trees. I'm looking at the birds. I'm thinking. I mean, you talk about a lease on life. It was like, going to the other side and then coming back and thinking, this is unbelievable.
You talk a lot about a concept called intentional enthusiasm.
Yes.
Tell us what intentional enthusiasm is and how we can apply that to our lives.
Well, it has 3 pillars, and the 3 pillars are belief, vision, and gratitude. Believe in yourself, have a clear vision of what you want to accomplish, and show your gratitude along the way. And intentional enthusiasm, the word enthusiasm comes from the Greek entheos, in spirit, the spirit within. So when you are enthusiastic, you're letting that spirit out. Now, most people believe that the only time to be enthusiastic is when you have something to be enthusiastic about. And that could be something that happens, something that you're doing, et cetera, something that you love to do, et cetera. But if you don't have anything of those components, then you can't be enthusiastic. It's wrong. Intentional enthusiastic means that you are intentionally excited about anything. I always say, whenever I have any kind of a task, my wife says, there's garbage tonight, got to take the garbage out. I always say, I've decided to be excited. I take out the garbage, I go outside, I look at the stars, I'm thinking, wow, look at this planet we live on. And taking advantage of what is there and how it is you see it. It goes back to that childlike experience. And so when you have that intentional enthusiasm, what the amazing thing happens is that all of a sudden you are accelerating what it is you're trying to do. It accelerates your success. But moreover, it keeps you grounded in what's really important, gives you the confidence of believing in yourself, and then having that vision, because let's face it, anytime you have a dream, you're the only one who has that dream. You can tell people about it, but even your closest friends, your spouse, they don't see it the way you do. So how you get there is going to be based on how it is you see yourself getting there. But the other part of it is, all along the way, not only is it always now, but there's always opportunities to help others. It's not about pushing and keeping going, it's about helping and getting going. And when you do that, you realize that, again, there's no way to go back to the other way, because now you are intentionally enthusiastic about everything you can be.
You're the creator of enthusiasm
Right.
internally,
Right.
as opposed to allowing any kind of outside forces to make the enthusiasm happen for you.
Great
Is that
way to
right?
say it. That's exactly it.
You've had a lot of successes in your life, and everyone's out there looking for their successful moment, right? Working hard towards that. What's that one piece of advice you would give someone who's seeking success? You talked about opportunity,
Right.
Right? All
Right.
the different ways to grab hold of
Right.
opportunity. How can you find opportunity out there?
Well, I think you find opportunity by deciding that you're, when you have that gratitude, when you have that there's always something to be grateful for. Like right now, think about what you're doing. You're a filmmaker. You're a respected filmmaker. You've got this incredible documentary that you're about to launch. You have, look where we are. We're in the actually downtown San Antonio, and we've got this studio. Look at this equipment that we've got. You know, there's so much to be grateful for. But even if you have very, very little, you can have that attitude of gratitude. That's what you always want to have. That's what will take you there. But I'll tell you, I'm going to share with you the best advice I ever got. And I'm fortunate that I got it at an early age. I was actually doing stand-up comedy in Los Angeles, because I would do that besides radio. And I remember I came off, I was working at a club called The Horn in Santa Monica, and I killed everybody, every joke, every hat thing. And so I walked out, I was like really feeling like, okay, I'm ready for the Tonight Show. This is great. And then I went over and I'm standing next to another comedian, and he says, "Can I give you some advice?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Don't take yourself too seriously." And I didn't understand quite what he meant then, but I did later. Don't take yourself too seriously. So many times we believe that we are what we do. We're not. You are what you give.
So when you say gratitude, this is something we hear all the time. What exactly is gratitude, in your words?
It's appreciation. It's a way of saying thank you, because really that's I think the greatest prayer you can say is thank you. In fact, those are the first words I say when my feet hit the ground, hit the floor, when I wake up. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. My son, who is a Christian rapper, he has this song. He goes, "Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, thank you, thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God." And that's it. You say thank you for everything. Thank you for your next meal. Thank you for oxygen. Thank you for friendship. Thank you for experiences.
One of the things that really fascinates me about you is your passion for new things, new ideas, new technologies.
Yes.
And knowing you, your excitement for artificial intelligence, especially ChatGPT, is one that I just find so amusing and entertaining. Because a lot of people have this fear of what artificial intelligence is going to do.
Right.
What are your thoughts on ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, and especially how it is changing radio, where now the artificial intelligence is the programmer and there's not a need for an actual human in there.
See, the genie's out of the bottle. Remember Napster? Mm-hmm. Remember how all of a sudden all these record companies were saying, no, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do that. And meanwhile, everybody was recording songs and getting this and downloading and everything else. If the record companies had said, okay, you can do it, $1 a download, they would have made millions. But they didn't. They wanted everything to be the way it was and no other way to get this music. Now we have all these things with Spotify, etc. But the thing is, what's going to happen is going to happen. So it's not a question of your attitude towards it as much as it is the acceptance of the good that can come from it. In fact, I saw an episode of Chicago Med where they had this, and I think this already exists, where the computer could actually take a 3D model of what was going on in the patient, and during operation, it would actually come out and the doctor could look and see what's going on here and what's going on there, and then they would know how to operate on the person. Well, that could save somebody's life, and there's other things that they're doing with AI. Not to say that there aren't these other things that can happen as a result, and it's happening very rapidly, but again, you can't live in fear. You can't fear the future. Embrace the good. I think that's my message. Embrace the good. There's good everywhere, and we're going to find what we're looking for.
If you could give one magic ingredient for your success, what is that?
I think it's hope. I've always had a sense of hope. And when you're a kid and you want to do something and your mom or your dad says, "We'll see." It's all you need to hear. "We'll see." And that's all I've ever heard in my life. Even if people said no, I always heard, "We'll see." And "we'll see" means it's going to happen. And when you find a way to make something happen and you're always looking for the "will sees" in your life, then you're able to get more success because of that. Everything goes back to enthusiasm. It goes back to, what Ralph Waldo Emerson, he says, nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm. And I look at the wonders of the world, I look at the pyramids, I look at the Eiffel Tower, that was an idea, that was a drawing, that was somebody came up with that. Somebody was excited about it, and they got somebody else excited about it, and then somebody else, and all of a sudden you got people building all these incredible things, and there it is. I tell my wife, we live in San Antonio where there's a lot of construction going on with our freeway system. In fact, there's a $1 billion project going on right now, and people are working on it. The summertime, 100+ degrees, and you see these construction workers, rather than curse the traffic or the construction, we should pull over to the side, get out of our cars, and applaud these people. How do we think it's going to happen? Because one day it'll all of a sudden, wow, look at this freeway, look at all this. It didn't happen by magic. So the other thing that we can truly do is to take the spotlight off ourselves and encourage others. And when you encourage others, you're encouraging yourself.
Well, your enthusiasm is definitely intentional, Sonny, and I can feel it, and it has changed my life. I will say this, I've enjoyed spending time with you, and every time we're together, it just makes me feel like I can accomplish anything. And like we always say, we're changing the world every time we're together.
We are. And let me just say that I'm so proud of not only knowing you and having you as a friend, but of what I've seen you do from the time we met. Because we've known each other for what?
About a year.
About a year. Mm-hmm. And I've seen this unbelievable chain of events. And every time we meet, you've got some good news for me. And I think that's another big component of having not only a great relationship, but also being excited for someone else. And not only am I excited for you, but I'm so proud of you.
That's right. And I think the intentional part, that's really rubbed off on me, because now one of the things I'm really focused on is the intentionality of my words. So I have to give that to you for allowing me to have that opportunity to see the world in a new way.
That makes me feel great.
Absolutely. I know that you're working on a new book.
I am.
What's the best that could happen?
Right?
What's the motivation behind this book? What inspired you, and why is now the time?
Well, the book is the story of my life. And it's all these stories and situations, etc., where I have always said, what's the best that can happen? And it served me well, not only with my career, with my personal life, etc., but it's also served me well in helping others to see the light of positivity. And what's the best that can happen is just that. I don't say, what's the worst that can happen? Let's prepare for that. In fact, you'll find that a lot of people who have succeeded beyond their wildest dreams never had a plan B, because they never focused on what was the worst that could happen, or what if this happened. They always had a plan A, and that's where they put all their energies. And so what's the best that can happen is a great question that I've always asked, but I've always given me a great answer.
So, Sonny, what about someone like a young person like our friend Enoch here behind the scenes?
Yeah.
Who's just starting his life
Yeah.
out. They want success.
Yes.
They want an enthusiastic life.
Yes.
What can they do today to start that?
Take advantage of everything that's out there, whether it is taking classes at, we have this wonderful, we actually have the #1 community college in America right here in San Antonio College. And they have every kind of you can be a firefighter, you can be a nurse, you can be a radio broadcaster, you can be a music producer. There's all these incredible opportunities, whatever it is you want to do. And that's, I think, that a lot of people never get to that point of what they want to do. They don't know what they want to be when they grow up. You can be a mountain climber, but if you don't know what mountain to climb, then you're just kind of sitting around saying, well, I'll wait for a mountain to come by that I like to climb. What you'd want to do is learn how to climb and climb other mountains, so that when you do find your mountain, now you've got that experience. So take advantage of everything. And the fact that he's here with you doing this project, doing this filming and other projects, etc., that's the right course. I always say, if you take a time of your day and work toward your goal. I'll give you one last story. I had a friend who was an actor in Los Angeles, and he was going to all these different auditions. We were having coffee one day, and he said, man, I can't believe it. I go to these auditions, and I know I'm as good as the people that get it, and I go there and I see, but I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I said, well, what are you doing to improve your craft? He says, what do you mean? I said, what are you doing to get better at what you do? He says, well, I'm going to all these auditions. I said, that's not improving. That's being that you're auditioning. You're not learning. You're not growing. And so I gave him this little rhyme. I said, every day before your play, do 3 things that will further your goal. And that was kind of the mantra. I said, okay, we're going to put the date on this napkin here, and we're going to meet here a year from now, and I want you to do those 3 things. That's 3 times a day, 5 days a week. That's 720 times a month, and consequently, you can do this throughout the entire 720 times a year. You do the math. Anyway, so he did it, and a year later, he had a starring role in a sitcom.
Wow.
But it was because he continued to grow as time went on and did something every day before you play. Do 3 things that will further your goal.
And so where can people find you, Sonny?
I'm on a website called Google. No. No, if you go to sonnymelendrez.com, you'll see my world, and it'll take you to other places as well.
Well, it's been a real pleasure having you today. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll look forward to continuing to change the world one visit at a time.
You got that right.